Corruption in law enforcement is a serious violation of trust that affects the police force's integrity and also destroys the lives of victims. When corrupt cops realize that their careers are over, it's often a very regretting moment. These officers, once trusted to uphold the law, find themselves dealing with the consequences of their dishonesty and misconduct. They face the reality of their actions that badly affected their jobs and futures. In this video, we'll explore some moments when the corrupt cops realized they destroyed their careers. But before that, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for regular updates. Now, let's get started. Number 1. Captain James Matt French. In March 2023, Captain James Matt French of the Oklahoma City Police Department was pulled over after being caught speeding and swerving between lanes. Clearly intoxicated, French stepped out of his vehicle and immediately identified himself as a police captain in an attempt to avoid the consequences of his actions. The arresting officer, however, was undeterred and proceeded with the investigation. French, realizing the severity of the situation, tried to use his position to influence the officer by repeatedly asking him to turn off his body camera, a request that was firmly denied. Despite his status within the police department, French was subjected to the same procedures as any other suspect. He admitted to having consumed 3 to 4 beers at a poker game earlier in the night, but attempted to downplay the extent of his intoxication. As the investigation progressed, French became increasingly desperate, continuing to plead with the officer to turn off the camera so they could talk. However, the officer stood his ground, reminding French that he had taken an oath to uphold the law impartially, regardless of the suspect's identity or rank. Ultimately, French failed the field sobriety tests and was arrested for driving under the influence. He was placed on administrative leave and stripped of his field duties, awaiting further legal consequences. The incident highlighted the harsh reality that even high-ranking officers are not immune to the law, and that abusing one's power can lead to the swift downfall of a once-respected career. Number 2. Officer Jim Rodriguez. On September 29, 2019 in Park City, Utah, a dispute between 2 teenagers led to a neighbor calling the police. By the time officers arrived, the situation had already been resolved, and everyone had returned to their homes. However, 2 Park City police officers, including Officer Jim Rodriguez, determined to investigate further, approached Michael Franick's house. The officers, however, had no warrant and no legitimate reason to suspect Franick of any wrongdoing. When Franick, aware of his rights, refused to cooperate and attempted to return to his home, the situation escalated. The officers forcibly entered his home, tasing and dragging Franick out without any legal justification. Despite Franick's clear statement that he was not resisting and his repeated reminders to the officers that they were violating his Fourth Amendment rights, the police continued their aggressive behavior. The turning point in this case came when Franick's 15-year-old son, Jack, began recording the incident on his phone. Jack, well versed in his rights, refused to back down even when the officers tried to intimidate him. He challenged their illegal entry into the home, captured their actions on video, and refused to let them seize his phone. Jack's courage and knowledge of the law were instrumental in exposing the officers' misconduct. The video footage, combined with the lack of any legal basis for the officers' actions, led to significant fallout. Both Officer Rodriguez and his partner were fired from the police department, and Franick's charges were dropped. The officers' careers were effectively destroyed by their decision to act outside the law, and the incident became a powerful example of how quickly a corrupt cop's actions can lead to their downfall. Number 3. Sheriff Scott Stevenson. On November 16, 2018, Midland County Sheriff Scott Stevenson found himself in career-ending scandal when Deputy Ashley Van Sloon responded to a call about a disabled vehicle on the side of the road. Stevenson was found slumped over, unresponsive, and mumbling incoherently in his car. When he finally regained awareness, he was still dazed and barely coherent, admitting to having been drinking and blaming it on a bad day. Despite his position as sheriff, Stevenson was subjected to a series of field sobriety tests, which he failed miserably. As the gravity of his situation dawned on him, Stevenson attempted to leverage his position to avoid arrest. He showed his sheriff's badge, hoping to garner sympathy or preferential treatment from the responding officers. Stevenson pleaded repeatedly with the officers, begging them not to arrest him and acknowledging that he had put them in a difficult position. He tried to explain away his behavior, citing personal problems, but the officers were firm. His blood alcohol level was found to be 0.23, nearly 3 times the legal limit. In the end, Stevenson was charged with operating a vehicle while visibly impaired, though his DUI charge was dismissed. He received 1 year of probation, a fine, and a 90-day suspension of his driver's license. Despite his pleading and attempts to appeal to the officers' sympathies, Stevenson was arrested and faced the stark reality of his actions. His career, once marked by authority and respect, was now in ruins due to his own misconduct. Number 4. Officer Nathan Winters. Tav Galanakis, a 19-year-old student, was pulled over by Officer Nathan Winters of the Newton Police Department for having his bright lights on. The situation quickly escalated from a routine traffic stop to a series of baseless accusations. Officer Winters, instead of simply addressing the issue with Tav's lights, began questioning him in a manner that suggested he was looking for something more incriminating. The officer's line of questioning, asking about alcohol and weapons without in basis, showed a clear disregard for the Fourth Amendment. Tav, fully aware of his rights, calmly cooperated while also challenging the officer's assumptions. He repeatedly requested a breathalyzer test to prove his sobriety. However, Officer Winters kept delaying the test. This delay of an hour seemed like an attempt to justify the officer's actions rather than seeking the truth. When the breathalyzer test finally occurred, it confirmed Tav's sobriety. Yet, instead of acknowledging his mistake, Officer Winters shifted his accusations, asking if Tav had smoked marijuana. Once again, there was no evidence to support this claim, and a drug test at the police station proved that Galanakis had no drugs in his system. Despite the clear lack of any wrongdoing on Galanakis' part, Winters arrested him. Galanakis' ordeal did not end at the police station. Instead of quietly accepting the unjust treatment, he took to social media, sharing the body camera footage of the incident. His video quickly gained traction, drawing widespread criticism of Officer Winters and the Newton Police Department. The public outcry led to a deeper investigation into the officer's conduct. In the end, Officer Winters found himself facing disciplinary action, and his career took a significant hit. Number 5. Officer Kenneth Skinner. In 2022, Kenneth Skinner, an officer with the Albuquerque Police Department, who, along with 2 other officers, was caught on camera mistreating a 53-year-old disabled man. The man, who was struggling to pay for his purchases, was accused of shoplifting by the officers. The incident quickly escalated, highlighting the dangers of police overreach and the mistreatment of disabled individuals. Kenneth, who was standing at the counter of a store, found himself surrounded by police officers who accused him of theft without any substantial evidence. The officers not only grabbed the money Kenneth had in his hand, but also physically dragged him by the arm, ignoring his attempts to explain the situation. When the officers demanded Kenneth's name, he refused, asserting his right to privacy. This led to a physical altercation. The officers, escalating the situation further, arrested Kenneth, citing his refusal to identify himself and accusing him of resisting arrest. Throughout the ordeal, Kenneth repeatedly asked what crime he had committed, to which the officers provided no clear answer. Instead, they threatened him with additional charges, including trespassing, and proceeded to search him, violating his Fourth Amendment rights. During the search, the officers found prescription medications in Kenneth's pocket. Despite the fact that these medications were legally his, the officers threatened to charge him with drug trafficking. Kenneth's case was eventually taken to court, where the charges against him were dropped due to a lack of evidence and the recognition of his disability. The officers involved were later charged with violating Kenneth's rights, including the Americans with Disabilities Act, highlighting the need for better training and accountability in law enforcement. That's all for today's video. I hope you liked the video. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more updates. Thanks for watching.